Imagine sitting around the dinner table with your family. Everyone is laughing, sharing stories, and enjoying a nice evening together. Suddenly someone turns to you and asks a question, but you missed a word or two. You smile, nod, and piece together the context as best as you can, or perhaps you have to ask them to repeat themselves. It seems like a minor annoyance, a completely normal part of getting older that we all just expect to deal with eventually. But that small struggle to hear isn't just a simple issue in your ears, it is actually taxing your brain. Today, I am showing you why a mild hearing decline can double your risk of memory loss, and the one simple device that can cut that risk right in half. Later, I am going to share a landmark study that proved one specific habit can protect nearly 50% of your brain power. You will want to see how easy this is to start. I am Robert Evans, a senior health researcher. If you find this information valuable, please subscribe the channel and like the video. This tells the algorithm to show this useful health information to more people so we can help seniors everywhere stay healthy and independent. Let us clear up a major misconception right away. For decades, a very common myth has persisted among older adults. Many people believe that mild hearing loss is completely harmless, a simple cosmetic inconvenience or a natural sign of aging that only affects our ability to enjoy a casual conversation. We often think that unless we are completely unable to hear anything at all, we do not need to worry about it. But this next perspective changes how we look at daily longevity when we examine what is actually happening inside your head when you cannot hear clearly. The reality is that hearing loss affects a massive number of us, yet we frequently ignore it. When you let this issue slide year after year, you are forcing your brain to adapt in ways that can cause real, lasting damage over time. The provided research shows that your ears and your brain are connected in a profound, continuous feedback loop. One important finding was observed by researchers at Johns Hopkins University who tracked older adults over extended periods. The authors reported that individuals with hearing loss saw their memory and thinking skills fade much faster compared to those with normal hearing. In fact, the data suggests that even a mild decline in your ability to hear can double your risk of developing memory problems and dementia. If the hearing loss progresses to a moderate level, that risk can triple. For those facing severe hearing loss, the risk can shoot up by 5 times. Why does this happen? It comes down to something researchers call cognitive load, which is just a simple way of saying your brain is overworking itself. Imagine your brain has a limited daily budget of energy and processing power. When your hearing is sharp, sound waves travel clearly into your ears, and your brain processes them effortlessly. But when hearing begins to fade, your brain has to steal energy away from other critical functions, like your short-term memory and your ability to focus, just to translate basic speech. Researchers observed that this constant strain leaves the brain completely exhausted, which can speed up the aging process of your mental faculties. To resolve this issue and protect your mind, the first practical insight you need to implement today is establishing a baseline hearing profile. Most seniors over 60 track their blood pressure and their cholesterol levels diligently, but they completely overlook their ears. The National Institute on Aging recommends that older adults get their hearing tested regularly. You can start by scheduling an audit with an audiologist or talking to your primary healthcare provider. Knowing exactly where your hearing stands allows you to intervene before your brain begins to struggle with the strain of distorted sound. Another immediate solution is learning to identify the hidden early indicators of this condition before it causes significant changes. Many people assume they hear perfectly fine because they can still hear loud sounds, but the provided research shows that the earliest signs are much more subtle. For instance, you might find it increasingly difficult to follow a conversation when there is background noise, such as inside a busy restaurant. You might notice that the voices of women and young children, which tend to have a higher frequency, sound muffled or unclear. Another common sign is frequently thinking that people are mumbling when they speak to you. The provided research shows that recognizing these subtle warnings is the key to preventing long-term cognitive strain. When you ignore these signs, you unwittingly set off a chain reaction. This brings us to a critical crossroad. To understand how to reverse this strain, we have to look directly at what happens inside the body. Let us peel back the layers and look at the actual biological machinery that connects your ears to your mental clarity. Here is what is actually happening inside your head when you cannot hear clearly. Your auditory system is not just a passive tube that collects sound waves from the room. It is a highly sophisticated network of delicate structures working together. Inside your inner ear, there are thousands of tiny specialized sensory cells called hair cells. Think of these hair cells as a microscopic translation team that converts sound vibrations into electrical signals that travel straight to your brain. The article explains that as we age, these delicate hair cells can become damaged or die due to loud noise exposure or genetic factors. Unlike skin cells, once these hair cells are gone, they cannot grow back. This structural breakdown alters how your brain receives information. When fewer signals reach the auditory cortex, the brain regions responsible for processing sound begin to change. Researchers observed that a lack of proper stimulation can cause the brain tissue in these specific areas to shrink over time. This means your brain is losing physical volume simply because it lacks exercise from everyday sounds. But the research reveals an even more surprising biological connection when we look closer at how other systems in your body influence your ears. Now, you might be wondering, what does my heart have to do with my ears? Think of it this way. Your hearing relies on a constant, tiny flow of blood to stay switched on. The provided research shows that your inner ear relies on a constant supply of blood to keep those delicate hair cells healthy. To understand how this works, think of your blood vessels as flexible hoses that deliver oxygen to your body. When you develop conditions like high blood pressure or diabetes, those vessels lose some of their natural flexibility and become narrow or stiff. This restricts blood flow, starving the tiny hair cells of the oxygen they need to survive. Managing your metabolic health is a hidden strategy for protecting your hearing and your brain. One important finding was that managing these conditions can prevent further damage to your auditory nerve. This leads to our next crucial insight, which involves reviewing your daily prescriptions. The National Institute on Aging notes that certain medications, known as ototoxic drugs, can cause direct damage to your inner ear structure, including certain antibiotics, heart medications, or large doses of everyday pain relievers. Work closely with your healthcare provider to ensure these prescriptions are not accidentally harming your hearing. And this is exactly where the daily routine becomes absolutely vital for anyone over 60 who wants to preserve their mental sharpness. When your brain experiences physical shrinkage and reduced signal input, it alters how you interact with the world. Researchers have mapped a troubling social pattern that occurs when hearing loss is left unmanaged. As conversations become harder to follow, many older adults feel frustrated, embarrassed, or exhausted after social gatherings. To avoid this discomfort, you might find yourself declining invitations or staying home more often. The authors reported that this social isolation is a major independent risk factor for accelerated brain aging. When you cut yourself off from human interaction, your brain loses the rich cognitive stimulation that keeps it vibrant. Physical hearing loss leads to emotional withdrawal, which starves the brain of the social workouts it requires to ward off memory decline. Preserving your hearing is about maintaining the social connections that keep your mind active. I know this sounds scary, but stick with me, because the solution is much easier than you think, and it does not involve surgery or expensive drugs. Here's the specific mechanism most people completely miss when they think about treating this condition early. We often think of hearing solutions as a last resort, something to consider only when our hearing is completely gone. But a landmark clinical trial funded by the National Institutes of Health, known as the ACHIEVE study, completely flipped this timeline. Researchers studied older adults with mild to moderate hearing loss over 3 years. They discovered that for older adults at a higher risk for cognitive decline, using hearing aids reduced their rate of mental aging by a staggering 48%. By simply introducing a device that clarifies sound, these individuals preserved nearly half of their cognitive vitality over 3 years compared to those who went without treatment. If you have stayed with me this far, you are already ahead of the curve because most people wait nearly 7 years to address these signs. You are doing the work now. The article explains that the devices work by immediately lifting the immense cognitive load off your brain, allowing it to reallocate its energy back to memory and thinking functions. This finding demonstrates that managing your hearing health is one of the most powerful, proactive actions you can take to secure your daily freedom. But this next perspective changes how we look at daily longevity when we connect these internal structural changes directly to your ultimate daily freedom and transition smoothly into the final, most impactful practical insights you can start practicing right now at home. To translate these incredible scientific discoveries into your everyday life, we can look at your action plan through a clear framework of small lifestyle adjustments. We can organize the practical application of these strategies using a framework of good, better, and best approaches, helping you take control of your cognitive health at a pace that feels comfortable and sustainable. A good approach begins with simple communication pivots that you can implement immediately within your home and social circles. The National Institute on Aging suggests changing how you interact with your surroundings to reduce the daily strain on your brain. For instance, when having a conversation, make a conscious effort to face the person speaking directly. This allows your brain to utilize visual cues like lip reading and facial expressions to fill in any missing auditory gaps. You should also turn off background distractions, such as a loud television or a running kitchen faucet, before you begin talking. When you visit restaurants, ask to be seated in quieter corners away from the kitchen or large crowds. Additionally, let your family and friends know about your preferences. Ask them to speak clearly, at a normal pace, and face-to-face without shouting, because shouting actually distorts sound waves and makes speech harder for your brain to decode. These basic habits cost nothing, but they immediately lower the daily cognitive workload on your mind. Frame these changes as simple, liberating lifestyle pivots rather than a set of rigid chores. You are simply optimizing your environment so your brain does not work double time just to enjoy a conversation. Moving up to a better strategy involves combining these personal habits with proactive, formal tracking. Scientific consensus points toward the importance of regular professional auditory checkups. Instead of waiting for severe communication breakdowns, you should treat your hearing with the exact same care as your vision or your dental health. The provided research shows that scheduling an evaluation with a certified audiologist every 1 or 2 years after you turn 60 gives you an accurate baseline. If a mild issue is detected, a better strategy includes exploring specialized assistive listening devices. These can include items like telephone amplifiers, closed captioning systems, television headsets, or smartphone applications that stream sound directly into your ears. By utilizing these tools for specific high-strain activities, you prevent your auditory cortex from going long periods without proper stimulation, which helps preserve those vital neural pathways over time. This constant engagement keeps your neural pathways fired up and active. Think of it as a specialized workout for your mind that prevents the structural shrinkage we discussed earlier. But the absolute best strategy for protecting your longevity and mental independence is the consistent daily use of properly fitted hearing aids. The provided research shows that these devices are not just simple amplifiers. They are advanced processing computers that tailor sound specifically to your unique pattern of hearing loss. As the landmark Achieve study clearly demonstrated, consistency is the ultimate key to unlocking that 48% reduction in cognitive decline. You cannot simply wear your hearing aids when you go out to a busy party and leave them in a drawer during the rest of the week. Your brain requires continuous, predictable auditory exercise to stay sharp. When you first receive hearing aids, it takes a few weeks for your brain to adapt to hearing everyday background sounds again, like the hum of the refrigerator or the birds outside. By wearing them consistently throughout your waking hours, you retrain your auditory cortex, keep your brain tissue healthy, and completely eliminate the social isolation that threatens your daily freedom. Your mind needs time to get used to the world of sound again. It is a gradual process of waking up parts of your brain that have been asleep due to a lack of signal. Transitioning to these strategies is not about adopting a rigid chore. It is simply about making safer adjustments and building better awareness of how you experience the world every single day. Taking care of your ears is a profound act of self-care that directly shields your mind from premature aging. By making these shifts early, you remove the heavy lifting from your brain, allowing it to focus on what truly matters, which is staying fully present with the people you love. Every single conversation becomes a form of healthy cognitive exercise rather than an exhausting, stressful battle. This information is for educational purposes only and does not replace medical advice from your own qualified healthcare professional. Mastering your hearing health and protecting your auditory pathways is a massive victory for your longevity. But it is actually only half the battle. Your brain relies on an intricate web of interconnected systems to stay vibrant, and protecting a closely related area of senior health, specifically your cardiovascular circulation and brain blood flow, is the critical next step to ensure your mind stays sharp as you age. Please subscribe to the channel for more research-based senior health videos so we can continue this journey toward lifelong vitality and independence together.